Hello everyone, my name is Laura Mahaffey. I am on the design team at the wonderful Alpha Stamps. And I made this little shadow box primarily as a study on how to use Copic markers, or just some basic things on how to use Copic markers. So these were black and white images that I colored and shaded with them. And we're going to go over some hints and techniques on how to do that with paper and fabric and a couple of other fun things. So stay tuned, here we go. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to show you is how to color one of these pretty little dogwood roses. This is neat paper. This is from a company called Prima. It's a new line called Paintables. You can get this at Alpha Stamps. It's neat because it's got a great texture to it. It's sort of like a cotton rag paper. It's thick and it's got some tooth to it, so you can lay color and lots of good layers on here. And because it's nice and thick, you can play with your color and it'll absorb it really well. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with my lightest color, which is a yellow. This is a Copic sketch marker. It has a wonderful painterly sort of tip on one end and a chiseled tip on the other end, so you can lay big swaths of color on a bigger surface. So I usually use the painter end. And what I'm going to do here is lay some color. This is once again the lightest color that I'm going to use. And I'm not going to be fussy about the edges because I'm cutting this out. So I'm laying the color, not fussy about the edges, but getting some good color on the surface. Nice and bright, pretty yellow. One of the reasons I lay the lighter color first is because if you're using some dramatic color changes and you end up with your lightest last, the tip of your marker can pick up that color and spoil the tip. So I tend to use the lighter ones first. So then I'm going to use my next light color, which is this pretty pure pink. This is RV23. Once again, using the brush tip. And what I'm going to do on this flower, I want the darkest colors on the outside. So I'm going to feather in the pink from the outer edge of the petal into the center. I'm not going to go all the way to the center, but I'm just going to sort of feather it in from the outer edge. Lay some color in, feather it in. That's good. Next, darkest color. This one is called Light Prawn. And I'm going to lay the color in again. I'm not going to go as far into the center with this one as I did the first pink. Just like that. It doesn't take long. Nice thing about this technique is you don't have to be an expert. Once you do it a couple of times, you've pretty much got it. So my next color is this vivid pink called Dog Rose Flower, which is appropriate since this is a dog rose. And once again, lay some color around the edge and feather it in, not quite so far as the others. Just a little bit. And this is a pretty dark color, but if you want to go even darker on the edge, you can certainly do that. Take this crimson color and lay a little bit of this in there. That's going to richen up the edge some, but you don't have to go far with it. Just like that. The next thing I'm going to do is take my yellow that I used the first time, and this is going to totally contradict what I just said about laying light color on top of dark color, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm going to take my color and I'm going to use this as a blender, and I'm going to start at the tip. I'm going to start at the inside of the flower, lay the color in here, and then I'm just going to feather this toward the outside edge. And what this does is marry up the colors and make them look like they belong together. Just like that. So we have some nice, rich, vivid color with the darker shading on the outside. Now, if you wanted to have your petals be darker on the inside, once again, it's the same thing, you just change your direction. So lay your color in, your basic color in first. lightest to darkest, but instead of starting on the outer edge, I'm going to start on the inner edge and just feather outward. Just like that. Same order that I did before, just different direction. So you sort of get the idea. It's very flexible. You can do just about anything that you want. And it's a lot of fun. And this adds a really custom look to your work. If you wanted to change things around, it's kind of fun to do that. Okay, so you can see the different effects it has from the outer in, from the inner out. So whichever way you feel like doing it, just do it that way and have a good time with it. The next thing I want to show you is coloring people. This is a collage sheet called The Mode in French Fashions, which once again is from Alpha Stamps. And I'm going to play with some green. Oh, I just realized she doesn't have a hand. Little stumpy. I'm going to play with some greens on the little girl since I've got this color here. And I'm just going to quickly show you what I've done. This is an anise, which is sort of a greeny yellow. And I'm going to start with the tip, painterly tip. And I'm just going to lay color in for her. And once again, since she's already cut out and most of her dress is the edge of her, is on the edge of the image, I'm gonna just give her a quick little flip and do that edge. And then as I lay color in, I'll do this for each color that I have, so that white raw edge isn't going to show. So I've laid some color in there. I'm just going to do the bottom of her dress. And once again, I've gone lightest to darkest is what I'm planning on doing. So I've got a green here. This is yellow green. This is YG03. And I'm going to take this green and just flick it into the shaded areas of the image. And this is a nice collage sheet. It's got shading on it already, so it gives you a nice guide as to where to put your darker color. So that's a great technique, and it makes it just give it some depth, and it looks a little artistic, and it kind of makes everything stand out. I'm just going to do a little bit of this sort of wild green. This is called Salad. See what happens. Just a little bit. This gives it even more range and makes it lively. So there you go. Easy peasy thing to do. It's a great technique. You can apply it to lots of different things. You can do it with flesh tones. You know, there's one that I really like. It's called Cherry Blossom. That's great for skin tones. And the other thing that I should mention is that if you go over something with one color, she's gonna have a green leg, and then go over it again with the same color, you can actually get some shading out of that as well. So you can use one color for a skin tone and just apply it around the edges a couple of different times, and you can get your shadows. So there you go for this technique. And you got your rose thing down. So moving on to the next thing. Now the other really fun things that I like to do with Copic markers are things like coloring Dresden trim and playing with seam binding, and also changing the way your papers look. And I'm going to show you that first because this is really cool. You've got a neutral sort of piece of paper like this where you've got a nice pattern on it, but the background is fairly neutral. You can change the color of this. You can use your Copics to change the feeling of the paper and customize it the way you want to. And the way you do that is something just as simple as taking your Copic marker. This is a great way to use your chisel edge side, the big side for broad strokes of color, and just run it over your paper, and you have a whole different feeling on the paper, and this one's kind of springy and pretty looking. So you can change the whole feel of the paper by changing the color of the background. Because these are translucent alcohol inks, you can still see all the detail, but like I said, it changes the whole feeling of the piece by changing the color of the paper. You can get some dramatic results also if you do something that has a dark background and a lighter pattern. And that just looks fantastic if you do something dramatic, like let's do this red. I think this is lipstick red. So once again, the same kind of technique. Just draw your marker across these broad swaths of color, and it really makes something rich. You can do some great stuff with that. So you can change the color of it, still see the pattern, but once again, change the whole feeling of the paper. That's just a really fun thing to do, and I do this often to customize things. So there you go, there's that. The next technique I want to show you is what to do with Dresden trim. I've got some gold Dresden here that I'm going to color for you. You can see some that's already done. And the markers, because it's alcohol ink and because they are translucent, they give this sort of enameled feeling to the Dresden trim. It makes it sort of like vermeil with enamel on the top. It's just a really pretty look. And it's very easy to do. You just take your marker. I'll tell you that if you want to do this, it's better to do it with strong colors because the pastels don't show up so much on the Dresden trim. So take a strong color, and I work brushing away from me. It's just easier. It doesn't fold the paper if you do it this way versus trying to do it this way. So just take the color and lay it down, and you get this really nice effect. And you know, Dresden trim does come in lots of colors, but it doesn't come in colors like this, so you can really do some neat stuff with it. If you want to change the color, let's do something else dramatic like this pink. And you can use the chiseled side or the brush tip side. So that looks great. It's a really pretty color. Nice look. I've done a couple colors over top of each other before, and I find that if you do that, and it's already dry, it'll actually pull color off of it, and sometimes it will pull the gold off. So be careful not to overwork the Dresden trim too much. So just quickly brush color on, and you get these really, really neat results. Very, very fun. Love Dresden trim. I get these trims also from Alpha Stamps. They've got lots of different kinds you can choose from. It's fun to play with them. So there's Dresden trim. The next thing I want to show you, and this is a pretty dramatic thing and really, really simple, is working with seam binding. You can do a lot of fun stuff with color combinations with seam binding and Copic markers. So I'm going to show you how I do that. I'm going to start out with doing the green and the blue. Is something nice like this bright salad green. You can use the chisel edge of your marker and just cover the whole piece of ribbon. And because this is silk and it absorbs this alcohol ink, it kind of spreads a little, so you get this watercolory look. It's just pretty dramatic looking, sort of an ombre look. And then I'm going to take the blue, and instead of covering the whole thing, I'm just going to run it along the edge and see what happens. And that is pretty cool. And it's going to bleed up into the lighter color. If it doesn't blend to your liking, you can always take your lighter color and run it along the edge of that and sort of blend it in and make that transition a little softer. So you get this really cool effect. Once again, a way to customize something. And I will do a pink now. Let's try, let's do this color. Let's do this light prawn. Let's see what happens here. Once again, cover the whole entire thing with your basic color. So easy and so fun. And it's just fun to play with it, and you never know what kind of combinations you're going to come up with. And then I'm going to do lipstick red on this, just on the edge. That's pretty cool. And just soften up that transition a little bit. Ta-da! Really simple, easy peasy. Ribbons with Copic marker. Really, really fun. Very fun. The next cool thing I want to show you, the last thing, is you can also color metal. So if you have Copic markers and you have a piece of metal and you think, wow, gee, you know, I really would like to have that a different color. I think that would be awesome. You can do that. So let's take this really dramatic blue and look at that. It is pretty neat. So you've got, once again, a customized piece for whatever it is that you're doing. Just let it dry, and it's gonna stay on there. Sometimes I will use a finish on the top of that, or you can use rub and buff or something to change it, make it look a little coppery around the edges. But there you go. That's a pretty cool thing to do to a piece of metal. And that was a silver one, and you can once again do it with gold, and it's going to look like enamel on gold, which is pretty neat and dramatic. So some different techniques to use with Copic markers. I hope they inspire you to go and play with them. Once again, all this stuff is supplied by Alpha Stamps, and the tips and techniques that I'm showing you are really for a broad range of, like I said, papers or ribbons, any kinds of fabrics. You can do it with crocheted lace, and just play with it. You'll come up with new things yourself. So have fun with it, and we'll see you later.